You're listening to the ESP, the European Skeptics Podcast, an independent weekly show set up to bring you news, interesting topics, and interviews with people mostly from Europe, building bridges and breaking down language barriers to show the world how active and awesome the skeptical movement is in the region. This is episode 520. I'm your host, András Pintér, and joining me for the show are my co-hosts, Adrienne Hill and Pontus Böckman. Hello, everyone!
Hello!
Hejsan!
Sziasztok!
Sziasztok! What is going on here? We have a Canadian infiltrator on our show. What's going on?
I know. Well, aren't we part European now with everything that's going on politically?
You wish.
Actually, I'm proud to say that we are becoming closer and closer allies. Well, I'm really hoping that I can still say we after the next election that we have. Yeah. Because if Orban stays on, we might be leaving the European Union soon. But I have seen suggestions for Canada to join the European Union as well, which would be funny.
Yes.
Just to spite Trump.
But I'd like to see our regions becoming very, very close allies in the future, which is apparently happening. So...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it would be wonderful. And we're making all kinds of deals with Europe.
Okay.
Very good. Very good.
So this is what we are trying to reflect on this week's episode in terms of how international we have grown with our hosts. So for those of our listeners who are not familiar with the voice, first of all, shame on you, because that means that you don't listen to the Skeptic Zone. So if the voice sounds familiar, that's because Adrienne Hill is a regular contributor to the Skeptic Zone. Not only her voice, but also her giggle is widely known, and rightly so. And you're wearing a t-shirt, our listeners don't see that, which says the Canadian loon, which is one of the symbols of the country, and it's on your $1 coin, which is called a loonie. So, yeah. Welcome to the show, Adrienne.
Well, thank you so much. And I need to add to the loon bit because I am a loon, one of the loons from Canada on the Skeptic Zone. Yeah. And Kat Mack, the other loon from Canada, who is also on the Skeptic Zone, gifted me this lovely shirt that, recognizes my position on the show, I guess you could say.
Very good. I'm very happy to have you on the show. It'll be a nice addition to the two dull guys talking.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks so much for inviting me. I was actually really thrilled with the invitation. And I'm so used to doing things for the Skeptic Zone very sort of on my own. So this is going to be quite different. So I'm expecting you guys to, interfere and guide me along and be my mentors in this.
Oh, we invited you to do that to us. But
Yeah, we wanted to give the whole show some structure. That's what we were hoping to do with you, but apparently this has been a mistake. Never mind, let's work with it. So for those of our listeners who want to know more about you, why wouldn't they? Who are you? What's your background? How did you get into skepticism? And how did we meet?
Well, we met through Richard. We'll start there. And you were
the classic story.
He put us in touch because he found out you were going to be bringing a group to Banff.
That's right.
And I live in Calgary, which is an hour and a half outside of Banff. So we started chatting after he introduced us. And I don't know how many years it's been now, but every time you come here with your tour group, we meet in Canmore, which is about 45 minutes from where I live. And we have dinner and hang out and do the dice game and interview each other. And I mean, it's such an amazing thing to me that we never met before Richard introduced us.
Yeah.
It's like going on a blind date, right? I don't know this person. And here we are, we're getting together and we just hit it off right away. I mean, we had a great time, I think. And hopefully you agree.
Yeah.
We've kept meeting. So it's great.
And we will keep meeting as long as I'm going there on a regular basis. But I don't know how much of that was because of us already having been familiar with each other's voices. It's just we just had to match a face and a person with the actual voice that we had already been familiar with. It's really cool. And we thank you, Richard. You're the matchmaker. the international matchmaker of skeptics.
And to go even further back would be Susan Gerbic introduced me to Richard Saunders. And
Susan is the other matchmaker. Yeah,
exactly.
Obviously.
She is really very much a matchmaker. And she got Craig Shearer and Susan Shearer. They were coming to Canada. She's like, oh, you've got to check out and meet up with Adrienne. And same thing, my husband and I and Susan and Craig, we just got along famously for 2 days. We just had a blast. It's a really amazing community that way. We don't know each other, but we get together and it's like we're friends forever. And the reason I know Susan Gerbic is I'm part of her Guerrilla Skepticism on Wikipedia editing team. So any listeners out there who would like to actually have an impact in this world, Wikipedia really is a good way to do it. I have only 11 articles that I've rewritten. Like I edit all the time. So I do little edits all the time, but I have almost 4 million views now on those 11 pages. And it's only been a few years that I've been editing. So you can really have a backdoor way into the skeptical movement and having an impact on good information, I guess is a good way to say it.
And the good thing about that is that once you do it, once it's done, once it's there, it keeps educating the people. And my favorite slogan that was used in the past for guerrilla skeptics was that you'll be educating the world in your sleep. And that's right. Really so. And I really love that slogan.
Yeah, it's a wonderful slogan. And I think when I first started, I had no idea the impact because my very first article was haunted houses. And within, 2 months, there were 50,000 views. And I get, 10 likes on my Facebook post. So, a much bigger impact than any other social media that I'm on.
Yeah, I think we can all relate to that. So, dear listeners, as usual, when we mention Wikipedia and guerrilla skepticism on Wikipedia, that is also a call for action. So please get in touch either with us and we can get you in touch with Susan Gerbic, or Susan loves to be contacted just out of the blue. So find her on Facebook and she'll be directing you to becoming as active Wikipedia editor as you want.
Exactly.
But you'll definitely get the training that you need for that.
And the training's really important. People can try to edit on their own, but most likely if you don't know the rules, which most people don't, your edit will be reverted. Even if it's a good edit, it will be reverted if you don't do it right. So it's really important to get the proper training. And her training is really down to earth and easy to go through. And it can take, I've seen people take a week, which is very unusual. And then all the way up to me, which was 18 months because I had health issues. So I'm kind of the other extreme. But most people under four months easily, and that's part-time, doing it sort of in the evenings on your own every once in a while. So it's not a huge thing to get trained.
Speaking of training, you had a background in education, right?
Correct. Yes. I'm a high school math teacher. Do you say math or maths in Europe? I know the UK is maths. I know there's big debates about that. So
we tend to use that.
The maths?
Yeah, maths.
Well, we say matte in Swedish.
Okay.
No, we say motek, but yeah.
No, so to get rid of the controversy, I'm a high school mathematics teacher. There we go.
Okay, matematika. Yeah.
There we go. Yeah. And I did that for over 30 years. And then when I retired, that's when I started doing this sort of skeptical activism. And I like to say that it's my new career that pays less. So...
That sounds right.
A lot less, I'm afraid, based on experience.
In fact, quite often I put money out, I have to pay for my, especially when I go off to skeptic camps or things like that. I love presenting because I'm a teacher. So that's one of the things that I've really done a lot of is gone to places to present about a lot of topics, including Tourette Syndrome, which of course we're going to talk about a little later. And we'll talk about my background there a little later as well. But yeah, we just recently had a skeptic camp up in Edmonton with Camp McLeod organizing, myself and Rodney Smaltz, who's a professor from the MacEwan University. We've had 3 of them in a year and a half, and they're so great. And we get the students involved, and it has been a huge success. So we are going to continue on with that. Getting the young people involved.
Yeah.
And that is quite a task, especially these days, because getting people to attend live meetings has, especially since COVID, it has become increasingly difficult. We are struggling with that, but we keep doing it. So it's
That's great.
We don't give up.
That's great. And I think we can't give up because I think personal contact is just so important, just being around people.
Yeah, and that is something that we have to portray as well, like the human side of skepticism, which is often very lacking. I think that's crucial.
So you heard it here first. Skeptics are humans too. But it doesn't pay. Go to patreon.com/TheESP and sign up for the right level for you. And then,
Please do.
Yes. Otherwise, we
Please
will
do.
be replaced by real robots.
But if you want to feed the algorithm and feed the bots, what else you can do if you don't have spare money? You can you can leave a review, 5 stars, preferably. That would be ideal. And if you don't like the show, please don't leave a review. That's not that important. But if you engage, that is very important. And we do have social media posts out there occasionally as well. If you share that, if you like that, if you comment on that, that also feeds the algorithm, which helps us a great deal. And what we mean by helping us is that helping us reach the goal of connecting people in the skeptical movement and perhaps outside of the movement as well, so that we can convey the message. That is important. Okay, so welcome to the show. Welcome back, I have to say, because that's not the first time that you're on.
No. I was on the 500th episode and interviewed by you a couple times too.
Exactly. You were featured on short interviews as well. But we do have a regular show that we invited you to participate in. And that means that we are actually kicking off with the usual, which is TWISH, or This Week in Skeptical History. All right, so this week, actually, it was just the day before the recording of the actual episode, the 24th of February, marks a somewhat dark but very important anniversary. It's been exactly 4 years since the full-scale invasion of Ukraine began. And why this is of skeptical interest is because, along with the physical frontline, that is a hellscape of mud and steel, and increasingly that of drone warfare as well, there is a second front, and that is one that lives in your pocket, on your feed, and in the training sets of your favorite AI. It's basically a 4-year masterclass in disinformation that we have been exposed to. So, 4 years ago, the Kremlin strategy was what I could call the fire hose of falsehood. In order to try and justify the actions, which, remember, was not allowed to be called what it really was, which is a war and an attempted full-scale invasion, but rather a special military operation instead, they had to justify those actions. So what I mean by a fire hose of falsehood is the extremely high volume of multi-channel disinformation campaigns, coupled with a total lack of commitment to objective reality. I mean, the fog of war, the expression the fog of war, it exists for a reason, because there's always some level of disinformation when it comes to war efforts. But this one is special in the way that this really blows everything out of the water with the amount of falsehoods. So in 2022, they weren't trying to make you love Russians and the actions of Putin. They were trying to make you, first of all, hate the Ukrainians, and trying to achieve that with several different messages that were based on sometimes outright lies. And if that won't work, they just wanted you to doubt everything. And we touched on that last week, if you remember, Pontus, that that's the problem with disinformation campaigns. It's that you completely use your way of navigating through reality with everything being so doubtful. So, do you guys remember the biolabs that were claimed to be around?
Oh, yeah.
In Ukraine? There was this claim that the US was training migratory birds in Ukraine to carry pathogens into Russia.
I had no idea. Wow.
No, but it was a thing. And it sounds like a rejected Bond villain plot, if you think about it. But it served its purpose. It provided a skeptical-sounding justification for an unjustifiable war. And we could list here like a greatest hits of hoaxes that were used for the very same purpose. And as we look back, the timeline of deception is almost impressively creative. And one of those claims that were there to justify the war effort, the special military operation, as it had to be called, was the denazification myth. Basically,
I heard that one.
Yeah, it's a classic case of taking a grain of truth, the existence of far-right elements, which are unfortunately there in every country, and completely inflating it until it covers an entire nation, which is led by a Jewish president. So it's really interesting how it turned on its own head, the whole claim. And nobody was bothered who bought that by the fact that it was completely self-contradictory. Since then, there have been claims that we can call altogether as the luxury smear. Like between 2023 and 2025, we saw a tidal wave of claims that President Zelensky was buying yachts and villas with Western aid that flows into the country. Now, in all fairness, there have been a couple of corrupt elements acting in the government that saw the light, fortunately, but that they degraded the trust in the government of Zelensky a great deal. But this whole luxury smear set of claims was completely fabricated. Fact checkers found these properties in question. They were often listed for sale by people who had never heard of getting in touch at all with Zelensky. So it's completely false. There is another thing that is still ongoing, and that is the attempt to try and make Ukrainian refugees in other countries look like villains, look like the bad guys. And across the EU, narratives shifted to portray Ukrainian refugees as ungrateful or dangerous to erode the very hospitality that saved millions of people fleeing the country, fleeing Ukraine. Unfortunately, in last year or so, this masterclass that I referred to has leveled up. By 2026, the tactics have moved from grainy, out-of-context videos and media content to high-definition deception using all kinds of AI-generated content. We mentioned at the beginning of the war, we mentioned the ghost of Kiev.
Yeah.
Our listeners might be able to remember that. So if 2022 was the year of the ghost of Kiev, which was a rare pro-Ukrainian myth, and it really helped firing people up, and I think that was its whole purpose. And there was this Zelensky's surrender, which was a crude Russian deepfake early on during the war. But then 2026 is definitely the year of the LLM grooming. So what I mean by that is that propagandists are now seeding the open internet with specifically crafted narratives designed to be harvested by web crawlers. It's obvious what the goal is. It's to subtly influence the training data of large language models so that when you ask an AI for a balanced view of the war, it spits out laundered propaganda. And it's the ultimate long game, if you think about it. And it does matter for all of us, especially because there is a crisis fatigue, not only with Ukrainians, but those countries as well, and the leaders of the countries and the populace of those countries that are providing aid for Ukraine. And all this disinformation erodes the support further. And that should not be reaching the level of actually stopping the aid. Because this war has proven that disinformation isn't just about the lies, it's about exhaustion. Russian tactics often rely on this analytical propaganda, using bits of real military jargon to sound authoritative, mixed with emotional propaganda to make you switch off completely. So that's the crisis fatigue that I'm referring to here. So when you hear everyone is lying, for example, the person behind the disinformation has won. They don't need you to believe the lie. They just need you to stop believing the truth. And we have entered year 5 of this war. And there are several lessons when it comes to the beehive, Ukraine's decentralized fact-checking efforts that is joined by an international team of fact-checkers as well, versus the mammoth that is the Russian state-run machine. So first of all, we need a lot of fact-checking, including checking of metadata of content. So is that really a frontline video actually from a 2014 video game? Unfortunately, the answer is in most of the cases, yes. They just put everything out, and as long as it looks believable, it works. It reaches the purpose. And follow the money. If a claim about corruption has no paper trail but 3 TikTok filters only, then, well, be a bit more cautious with your interpretation of the things. And there is another thing when narratives try to breach two unrelated grievances. For example, if there is this war going on and we should help Ukraine, but as a result of this crisis, your energy bill is high or higher than it used to be, then you should not blame the Ukrainians for that. You should try to find the right person to blame it on. And that person, when you put all the facts together, has to be the aggressor, has to be the one who started this whole thing, not the ones who are fighting for their lives and fighting for their independence. So we know that the fog of war is thick, but your critical thinking is the high beam here. So stay curious, stay questioning, and for heaven's sake, stop getting your geopolitics from TikTok deepfakes, because it's not going to lead to anything good.
Yeah, this is really serious. I don't know. I mean, it looks very dark when you think about it, because it seems so overwhelming, this AI barrage of fake things that you are constantly exposed to. I don't know. You just have to try to keep our heads sane in all of this.
Yeah, and this expression of the fire hose of falsehood, that I mean, that's there to overwhelm the capacity to fact check and to dig deeper, because we don't have the right amount of resources to do all that. So you have to stop and think. And this is why a skeptical approach is what we all need here. Well, that could be applied to everything, basically, but as we try to do.
I was going to say, and our brains tend to leap to, oh my God, that's crazy. Like we don't think, right? We just react. Yeah. And that's what is hard for us to do, is to slow down, look for other sources, and not share quickly. I mean, I've heard that advice so many times over the last few years, and there's still an impulse, even myself who's been doing this and practicing it, to, oh my God, I'm going to share that, right? And we have to slow down and look into it and not take it for face value.
And ask yourself, is this really the case? Is it worth sharing? Yeah. Am I doing any harm with sharing this? Or is it definitely going to be good? Yeah, those are important questions to ask yourself. All right, so let's remember how it started, who started it, and who's the only person who could stop it. But there is no end to this in sight, unfortunately. But with that, I think it's time for us to move on to the news, and I'm really happy to announce that the presenter of our first news item this week will be Adrienne Hill.
Well, thank you. And it's going to be a subject that's very close to my heart. It's actually going to be about Tourette Syndrome, and there's the last few days, I don't know if you've seen in the social media what it's like in Europe, but here in North America, social media has gone crazy talking about the recent Bafta Awards, which are the British Academy of Film and Television Awards, where John Davidson, who is a person with Tourette Syndrome, had a tic episode where he shouted a racial slur, which I am not going to say.
Thank you.
When
You're allowed to. No, I just realized, but it's not about swearing. It was about it was a racial slur. So
it
I
was
just
a
realized.
Racial slur.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, you're not allowed to do it. Yeah.
No, I'm not going to say it. And he said this slur when he was in the audience as Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo were presenting, and they're both people of color. And the two were very professional, in my opinion, and a lot of others' opinions. And they stopped briefly when they heard it, but they carried on as if nothing happened. And another problem was the BBC failed to delete the slur on the slightly delayed live broadcast. Why was Davidson in the audience? Do you guys know who this Davidson person is?
Wasn't there a film that was made based on his story?
It is, correct.
Yeah, okay.
And the actor who portrayed him in the movie, and the movie's name was I Swear, he was nominated for and then won the Best Actor award over people like Leonardo DiCaprio, which is pretty amazing. I've not seen the movie. It's not available in Canada. But I have seen clips, and his portrayal looks really good and very accurate.
And you would know.
And I would know. Why would I know? That's a great segue, Andres. So my background with Tourette syndrome is that I have 3 kids who have been diagnosed with Tourette syndrome. Now, one of them, we don't have a real official diagnosis because Tourette syndrome is a spectrum disorder. So you can have very mild symptoms all the way to very intense symptoms. It's characterized by tics, both vocal and movement. Vocal being, of course, words or clearing throat or sniffing, anything that makes noises around the face. So you have to have both. You have to have it for at least a year, onset before age 18. There's a lot of definitions, little boxes you have to tick to get that diagnosis. And so I have 3 kids with anxiety, OCD, Tourette syndrome, the whole gamut. And I have been working for the last 21 years with various Tourette organizations, Tourette Canada from 2005 to 2018. And I am presently on the board of Tourette OCD Alberta Network. And I get to hang out with some of the preeminent experts in the field of Tourette syndrome. So if I don't know the answer to a question, I can find it because I have these people at my fingertips. It's wonderful. And so when this came out, I couldn't believe it. You said you wanted me on the show, and then this came out. I was like, can I please talk about this? And I thank you for letting me do it. And so the very first myth, because, skepticism, is I want to talk about the swearing. And then we'll talk about the slurs, because it kind of all goes into the same bucket, if you want to say. It's called coprolalia, or you say inappropriate things. And in the Tourette population, how common do you think it is for people diagnosed with Tourette syndrome to have coprolalia, or a swearing or nasty things that come out of their mouth kind of tick?
I have no idea, but that's the one you hear about, right? That's
Correct.
The one that people all know about.
Yep.
I would put it to 10 to 15%.
Oh, interesting. And no idea, Pontus? No, you don't want to guess?
That sounds reasonable, but I have no idea.
That's really interesting. Of all the people that I've surveyed before today, that question, most people say 50, 75, 80, 90%, that kind of thing. It's actually less than 10%. So you were very close. I'm very happy with that.
No, I suspected that it was much, much lower than what people generally think.
Yeah. But these are the ones that are sensational, that make it onto Dr. Phil and Oprah and, it is the way it is. And the thing is with Tourette syndrome, the tics often change. They don't stay. They stabilize more in adulthood, but they can change. Just because you have a swearing tic today doesn't mean you're going to have it tomorrow. So that's actually a function of Tourette syndrome, is the waxing and waning. That's another thing. They're not always going to be that severe. However, anxiety will bring them out. So just think about this. So when John Davidson's in the audience, his anxiety level is going to be way up, partly because he's afraid he's going to tick.
Yes.
And he's anxious because he wants his movie to win, right? So good stress, bad stress, it doesn't matter what it is. The tics are going to get worse. And so that's, my second myth is really about severity. Just look at my own family. I have kids who ranged from hardly just mild tics that didn't interfere with them at all the way to pretty severe. I've seen worse. I've worked with kids that are a lot worse than my kids, but my kids range between the 3 of them. They're all different tics. Some of them were the same because there's very similar ones, like eye tics are very common. But those are the biggest myths, in my opinion, as well as the frequency. It is 1% of adolescents and children who have a diagnosis at this point. Of course, it could be more because a lot of people don't understand it, but doctors even don't understand it.
And a lot of people don't even think of getting diagnosed. I mean,
Correct.
I know that in Hungary is not even talked about. So it's known, but in just select segments of society that are aware of it. Usually it's not even a thing that people even think to get diagnosed for.
Yeah, and one of the common things is just stop that. You can control it. And one of the really strange parts of Tourette syndrome is, yes, you can control it. Kind of like if you have a mosquito bite, you can stop yourself from itching, but it can be really hard. Right? Yeah. So eventually you might, if you're not thinking about it, if you're daydreaming, you might automatically scratch. And that's exactly what it can feel like with Tourette syndrome. Mm-hmm. There usually is an urge, a premonitory urge, and so they can hold it in, but there's a tremendous cost because you have to concentrate on it. So it gives it this sort of mystique that, yes, you can control it. So smarten up kind of idea. When there's a tremendous cost associated with holding it back. So I thought I would share with you some of the social media things that I came across.
You mean connected to this particular incident?
Yeah, connected to this particular episode, the incident with regards to the racial slur that happened. And then I'll sort of talk about my experience with this type of thing. So one of them says, I have a friend with Tourette's, but this was totally intentional. And so there's that jumping in of judgment. And I saw a lot of this. This was not the only one that I saw. I was actually getting really angry and upset. And I was actually quite teary because, it really it's personal, right? I have kids with this disorder. And it is not intentional, and it can appear intentional. And before I go on with that, I'll read this next one. He also uttered the same slur when the Black lady designer spoke. He was very selective with those slurs. No other group caught a stray. And it can appear very intentional. And I'll give you an example. This is not going to involve any slurs or swearing. My oldest son would say to me, and only me, so that they can be very intentional towards a specific situation. And we don't know why that is, but they can be very situational. So in the morning, he would look at me and go, Mom, what's for dinner tonight? That was his tick. But that sounds like a reasonable question, right? Waking up in the morning, what are you making for dinner tonight? Then after school, he would see me, Mom, what's for dinner tonight? First thing when he saw me. And then during dinner, Mom, what's for dinner tonight? After dinner, Mom, what's for dinner tonight? So you can see how they can appear very intentional in the morning and after school, but it no longer makes sense when
it occasionally fits the context, but not all the time,
Exactly. Shut up. So, right there, that's a common tick with kids. Shut up. Just to say something like, shut up. But do you see how I said it sort of in the middle of a sentence? It makes no sense, though maybe I did want Andres to shut up. Who knows? But that's not my intent.
That's a very common feeling among people. Yeah.
There you go. So it can seem intentional. It can seem purposeful. And if that person gets angry and their anxiety's up, they're probably going to say their tick. So it really does feel intentional. So I'm guessing that, and I can't, of course, speak to this person's diagnosis, but my guess is that he saw a person of color and this slur came out because of the situation. And he was mortified. And he came out with a public statement afterwards saying he was mortified. He actually left because he was so mortified.
Yeah.
And so then we get into the whole thing that the apology was a non-apology. And there's so much sort of vitriol going back and forth between this. And there's people who are supporting him saying, you have a disability, you shouldn't have to apologize for it. And I understand that. And then they're saying, yes, but you're accountable for what you say, and it is hurtful. And my stance has always been that you are accountable. And I've had students who will say terrible things. I worked with a person who would only say terrible things to disabled people, particularly in wheelchairs. This is not good. And could you imagine? It's awful. So everybody was embarrassed and horrified. And so it's about coming out with a strategy to sort of mitigate this. And a lot of people will print out a card that just says, I have Tourette syndrome. I did not mean this. I'm sorry. And so they don't, because I'm sure it's tiring. In fact, what was it? Her name, Kat Ford. I don't know if I can say her name. Is Kat Ford? Do you know who Kat Ford is?
But you mean the Kat Ford from the United Kingdom? The skeptical.
Yes. We know her. Yes.
Yeah, we know her. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Because she had a really nuanced take on this.
Oh, she usually does.
So I've asked for permission to actually say this. So I love what she said here, and she said, the criticisms of John's apology are very confusing. On the one hand, for many people, hearing that word can cause genuine distress, and I agree. And regardless of intention, when we hurt someone, we should apologize. I might have an odd understanding here, but to me, an apology is not always about taking on culpability, but about recognizing the harm you've caused to another and an indication that you want to repair the situation.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm sure John and many other people with Tourette syndrome spend their whole fucking lives explaining themselves and apologizing, which must be emotionally exhausting. And I love that. And I think it's nuanced. And I think it's taking a look instead of just reacting and going, how terrible, right? She said it way better than I could. So that's why I'm using her words. And I also wanted to just maybe finish off with the Black Lives Matter from Oklahoma City posted what I thought was a very good, again, nuanced look at this. And it says, basically, I can hold two things at once: the clinical reality of Tourette's and the historical and personal reality of that word's weight. And I think those two looks at it are correct. I don't think this is a black and white situation where you can say, oh, he's terrible, we should ban him for life. And I don't think we should discount the discomfort that word brings to a whole population.
Yeah. No, but it's very hard for people to do what you just said. You want to see it black and white, but it's always more complicated. You like to say that all the time, Anders. It's always a little bit more complicated than you think. And that's hard work to keep complicated things in your mind. And it's emotional, so you want to go for one or the other because that is emotionally more satisfying.
Yeah. And those situations actually remind us, and that's the important function of those situations, that they remind us of the complexity of such a situation. You definitely remember, Pontus, when we brought about from our own countries certain sweets and drinks and all that. And the candy that I brought about, which was a big hit in Hungary, it's always been, it's called negro, which is, well, it's a word that means black. It doesn't necessarily have any connotation with people of color. But the moment I showed the packaging of that candy, people started like gasping, like, oh, what's going on? And I explained that the name came from the founder of the company that produced that candy, and the guy's name was Pietro Negro. So this is how it became negro, and it happened to be black, the original candy. So obviously the name really fit. It had nothing to do with people of color, and yet if you don't explain that, it will bring about that kind of connotation and that kind of association with things that are painful. So, but we need to be able to distinguish, even though I'm not going to push it in front of people for the purpose of just doing that. But it was the most Hungarian thing that I could bring about. So
yeah. Well, and it wasn't, it's not totally strange if people think that it is racist, because I don't want to mention that now, but we do have some candy historically in Sweden that was intentionally racist in nature, and they were all renamed sometime some of them as late as in the 70s or 80s. We can't call this that anymore. It doesn't feel right. But it was invented like in the end of 1800s or something like that. And at the
that
time,
was intentional, right? That was intentional.
That was intentional, and people didn't think anything by it because everybody was racist at the time, or they didn't know it, I think. Okay,
moving on.
Before we get too dug down into things here that we can't dig ourselves up out of, let's talk about religion, because why not? I always talk about religion, I think.
Yeah, let's do that.
Believe it or not, there are still several countries in Europe that has blasphemy laws. Many of them do, actually. I mean, notably Germany, Austria, Slovakia, Italy, Spain, Portugal, Finland, and Denmark even. In many cases, this is what they would call a dead letter law, which means that it's in the books, but you don't prosecute it anymore. However, dead laws can and have suddenly come to life after a while when you least expected it. So blasphemy laws should be a thing of the past. It's not compatible with a democratic society to not be able to criticize certain ideas and belief systems. This does not include persecution of groups of people, of course, but you must be free to attack the actual ideas. And sometimes that line can be hard to draw, of course. The British Isles have gone through a change over the last couple of decades where most of them have abolished blasphemy laws. England and Wales did that in 2009. Scotland did it as late as in 2024. Even the Republic of Ireland did so in 2020, which was a bit sensational given that they are very Catholic over there and have been for a long time. It probably had a lot to do with a certain interview that most of our listeners may have seen. It was with Stephen Fry in 2015.
Ooh, loved that one.
Yeah. That's the one where Stephen Fry, on an Irish TV interview, declared what he would tell God if he was suddenly got to see him. And he started as like, bone cancer in children? What is that about? And he went on to list a number of things that has no place in the world if there was a benevolent God. And he said that if God actually does exist against all odds, he certainly must be, quote, utterly, utterly evil, end quote. Yeah. That's what he said on Irish television when they had a blasphemy law. So 2 years later, Fry was investigated by the police for possibly breaching this law. But the investigation was dropped because the police couldn't name any person who had suffered any damage. That was an interesting dimension to that.
I missed
That's pretty healthy. Yeah. That's pretty healthy because an idea or a belief system doesn't have any rights in a way. I don't think it should. People may have, but not ideas as such.
And neither does a made-up friend of yours. So it's...
Exactly, yes. So the following year, 2018, there was a referendum. And as a result of that referendum, the law was repealed in 2020. And I think it had a lot to do with Stephen Fry. So after Scotland did the same in 2024, Northern Ireland is now the only country on the British Isles that still have a blasphemy law. But after many years of legal work, now that seems to have a chance to change. The Northern Ireland humanists have lobbied for years for this, and after quite a few setbacks, a new amendment to the Justice Bill has been put forward by a person called Connie Egan, who is an Alliance MLA and Justice Committee member. So MLA is a member of the Law Assembly in Northern Ireland, so that's equivalent. This is the local parliament.
Yeah.
So there have been several attempts before this to do that, but it always failed on some technicality or other. At least that's my impression. But I hope really now that it will pass, and I also hope that other countries will take UK and Ireland as examples going forward.
Oh, great. Well, we should take the UK and Ireland in many aspects as examples. I mean, here in Hungary. And we do not have a blasphemy law. That's good. So even though religion plays a very important role in how the country is being run, but there is another aspect that I'd like to talk about with regards to the Hungarian system, and that is that my home country is one that's often a bit of a paradox when it comes to public health. It boasts some of the strictest childhood vaccination laws in the world, yet it's currently the scene of an increasingly aggressive battle between science and skepticism. And that is reflected by the fact that, for example, last year's Flat Earth Award went to one of the lawyers who keep representing people who want to avoid their children being vaccinated. And she's doing a lot of harm with that. And you also might remember that from episode 510, where we cover the story of a pediatrician in the town of Good. She was pushed to the brink of resignation, not by a lack of resources, but by a coordinated campaign of harassment from anti-vax parents. These parents weren't just protesting, they were threatening to sue the doctor for millions of forints, which equals to thousands of euros, and subjecting her to bizarre public humiliations. The situation got so dire that the local community had to organize a solidarity walk just to convince their doctors not to quit and leave the town without pediatric care. So fast forward to a couple of days ago, and that silent pandemic of mistrust we discussed has taken on an even darker turn. While the gut case was about doctors being bullied for actually doing their jobs, a new scandal in the town of Dunavarsány shows what happens when the pressure, or the profit motive, we don't know, breaks the practitioners themselves and results in terrible actions. So a GP there in Dunavarsány was recently caught on hidden camera running a fake certificate scheme. She was charging around 50,000 forints, which equals about 130 euros, to quote-unquote administer a mandatory vaccine, which we have a lot of in our system. If you don't administer those, if you refuse vaccinating your kid, that could result in a long legal battle with the state. So that is pretty important. But this GP, instead of injecting the patients, she would squirt the dose into a cotton swab and then record it as a completed shot in the official state system.
Wow.
And it's a total betrayal of public trust. And she's now facing serious criminal charges. And I have to add, rightly so. So this should not be happening. And I really hope that will keep any other anti-vax practitioners from doing the same thing. But to understand the scale of this, you have to look at the numbers. Historically, Hungary's mandatory system meant a near universal uptake, over 99% for things like measles, which is pretty good. But for voluntary vaccines, the bottom has fallen out completely. Flu vaccine uptake is at a 15-year low, and COVID-19 booster rates for the elderly have plummeted to as low as 1.3% in some areas of the country, while Western Europe stays closer to 40% in general. That is a pretty large difference. So it means there is a push against anything that is not mandatory. So people don't necessarily want to break the law, so they take up the mandatory vaccines, but when it comes to the voluntary ones, they refuse. And as the European medical community, including the Standing Committee of European Doctors, warns in a recent joint statement, this isn't just a Hungarian problem, it's a continental one. But Hungary is like the canary in a coal mine. It proves that you can legislate a needle into an arm through mandates, but as soon as you stop mandating, the lack of trust becomes a chasm. And that becomes a communicational issue. So we have to make sure that people understand why it's necessary. And we seem to be losing that war. This is why, for example, tomorrow, as of the day of the recording, we are hosting, or I am hosting personally, a roundtable on vaccines and the anti-vax movement. So we invited a couple of experts, and we're going to discuss all that. And one of the main topics will be vaccine communication, because that's where we are lacking big time, I think.
Tough. It's interesting that how in Sweden doesn't have a mandatory vaccination, but it's fairly high. It's getting lower, unfortunately, but for a long time it's been very high anyway. And analysis points to that it's because we trust our government, we trust the society,
right?
And why do we do that? Well, we haven't had a civil war for hundreds and hundreds of years. We haven't had any war for a long time, for one thing. And we have had a stable democracy for a long time, and people generally trust the government, which is a good thing. But that is, I think, changing a little bit now.
In Hungary, for example, and we've discussed this with the Hungarian skeptics on some radio shows as well, there was a recent case of Samsung battery manufacturing plant that was not adhering to the environmental regulations. And it turned out that they had been releasing harmful materials to the environment as well, but they really exposed their workers to massive amounts of harmful materials. And it turns out that the government had known all along. But it's because if it's a corrupt government, there are certain other goals and certain other aspects that they want to consider instead of the safety of people. These are the things that completely destroy the trust that's still there towards authorities and government organizations. And unfortunately, as a result, everything that the government says becomes something to oppose, including vaccinations, because obviously they try to push for vaccinations. But you can imagine if there is a complete lack of trust in the government, it says that, okay, whatever they say, I'm going to say the opposite is true. That leads to things like anti-vaccination being on the rise.
From vaccination to Crotchgate.
Okay. Not the place where we would like to get vaccinated.
Just wait, Andres.
Okay.
So I'm guessing a lot of people have heard about the Crotchgate or Penisgate at the Olympics held in Italy that just finished last weekend. Apparently, there were reports on the eve of the first day of the Olympics from a German tabloid newspaper. Hopefully, I pronounce this correctly. Bild, B-I-L-D. And it raised the possibility that ski jumpers were getting hyaluronic acid or paraffin injected into their genitals to enlarge their equipment so that the surface area of their suits would be increased, resulting in longer jumps.
Wow, that's dedication for you. I mean, then you're really committed to the sport.
Oh my goodness. Oh, my Zone Giggler reputation is going to be coming through on this one, I'm afraid.
Don't keep it in.
It's going to be hard. So, and I'm going to be concentrating on the hyaluronic acid accusation. That was covered in most of the media that I looked at. Very few talked about the paraffin part. Briefly, let's look at paraffin. It can be in liquid or solid form, and it's used for candles, canning, crayons, cosmetics, to name a few things. So it's used for lots of different things, and apparently injections into genitals. So let's take a look at hyaluronic acid, because that may not be as familiar to everybody, though it is becoming more of a common ingredient in a lot of things. And according to Wikipedia, and my daughter-in-law, who actually is a material scientist who obtained her PhD studying hyaluronic acid, not in a medical capacity, but in a material science type of way. So she knows lots about it. It is a complex sugar polymer, and hopefully I got that right and I interpreted everything. There was a lot of complex stuff on these pages, and it's an important part of things like articular cartilage, so moving, the cartilage that allows movements within our joints. And she states, my daughter-in-law stated that it is often injected into arthritic joints with mixed results. So, for example, in the US, this procedure is often not covered by insurers because they don't think it really does much. But according to Arthritis UK, hyaluronic acid injections for osteoarthritis in your knee might be recommended if other treatments have failed to work. The European Alliance of Association for Rheumatology sees hyaluronic acid injections as one of many possible injectables to be used to help patients. It is said to be like a lubricant for joints, and possibly it can regenerate cartilage. So it's still being investigated by a lot of people.
Yeah, it's a very interesting material because it's used in skincare as well.
Yes.
Because for hydration purposes, it has very, very high water binding capacities. So
exactly.
It can hold a lot of water. And this is why it's widely used for all kinds of purposes.
Exactly. Yeah. And it is a major component of skin. So it actually naturally occurs within our skin. And that's why it's found in so many skincare products
and the joints
today.
And the joints as well.
Correct. Yeah. It's a naturally found product. Yeah. And but it's also used as filler, often for lips and wrinkles, because when combined with water, like you said, it swells and forms a gel, which takes us back to penis injections.
Oh, God. Oh, yeah. Okay.
So,
ready?
So, according to a leading European plastic surgeon who focuses on that area, Alessandro Laterra has stated he injected hyaluronic acid into an Olympic skier's penis 1 month before the event. And yes, he's a real doctor. I checked out his credentials. He's the real deal. I love what he says on his website, though I have to read this. Quote, the considerations shown hereunder derive from almost 20 years of activity in the field of dimension modification surgery of the penis. Okay. So that's what his specialty is. So he knows what he's talking about.
Wow.
And on his site, he does discuss many substances that can be injected to increase the girth, including hyaluronic acid. Now, both him, Litera, and a Virginia Tech aerodynamics expert named Christopher Roy believe that the penis enlargement idea really could work.
Yes, you really want to have an aerodynamic penis. I've always wanted one, so I can fly on that.
But why would it be beneficial on a sports event? I mean, we've probably all heard of the Norwegian guy who admitted on TV that he cheated on his girlfriend.
Yes, there were lots of interesting things.
Apart from that, I don't see any other purpose for penis enlargement.
Well, that's my personal theory, is that's what this Olympic skier might have been going for. Maybe not this aerodynamic thing, but let's get into it a little more. So Latira did say that it could work, but it would take a minimum of 3 injections per year. You have to be really committed. Now, the scientific journal Frontiers ran computer modeling to discover that an extra 2.8 meters in jump length would result for an extra 1 centimeter of fabric. So that's what this is about.
So they're not flying on the penis, they're flying on the fabric, but
Correct.
They can be allowed a bigger suit if they are well equipped.
And they have very strict rules about the suit. They have to they have to have a body scan, and they're only allowed an excess of so many centimeters. So if they have a larger part of their body, I guess they have a bigger suit.
So now organizers will just have to scan for that as well. I mean, there's all kinds of different drug abuse cases that they have to look for. But now they have to look for penis enlargement as well. Okay.
Apparently, but I couldn't believe that 2.8 meters difference. I was shocked to see that. But apparently, this use of increased crotch size has been tested by Norway using a different, less invasive way, which is good. The head and assistant coaches of the Norwegian team got an 18-month suspension at the 2025 World Ski Championships, and 2 of their jumpers were given a 3-month suspension for manipulation of the suits in the groin area. I find it curious that that's the area that's least likely to be found. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe it's just
because I'm thinking it should be any part of the body. I mean, it could be under the arms, or even having bigger muscles maybe would give your arms a bigger air resistance.
So it is all related to BMI too. So the length of the skis is related to their BMI. And so, they sort of try to take into account to equal things up with regards to differences in like muscles and things like that. So maybe this is just a little harder to judge,
no pun intended. Okay.
Oh, God. This is such a difficult thing to stay straight. Okay. So what happened apparently is they added extra stitching, illegal stitching into the crotch area, and the seams actually had to be ripped apart to discover the manipulation. How did they even get caught? Well, a person saw them doing this and was hiding behind a curtain and pulled their phone up and then loaded it up to YouTube anonymously. And it was investigated, and it was found, yes, they had actually added these extra stitches.
It's a little bit creepy, though, to film people manipulating their crotches, but okay.
Oh, but that's the material, right?
Okay, so it wasn't on their body at the time.
No, they weren't on the body at the time,
right.
no. And as you say, they're going to have to investigate this. So the International Ski and Snowboard Federation said there was no basis for the rumor, but the World Anti-Doping Agency would investigate it and be on the lookout for evidence of male skiers artificially enhancing their penises. And actually, they have to decide whether it's actually doping or not. They have to decide if this is considered.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like cheating to me, I think.
Imagine now having to go through all that examination, that X-ray examination.
The before and the after scans.
The before and the after, yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
Scanned all the time through the year. I don't know. But this is, this is possible. So it's plausible. And we all know that athletes will go to extremes to win. So I guess it's plausible.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
But I also kind of think it might be just some mischievous myth making. That's what I'm hoping.
Well, it's a little bit, it's a very sensational story, of course. I understand that it's rather juicy to spread this, whether it's true or not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
So let's leave that behind. This is not about crotches. Let's move to other areas like AI, deepfake, bogus medicine, and fraudulent payment routes in one story. How about that?
Wow.
There's a company in the Netherlands that have been marketing supplements on social media with claims of medical efficacy. The capsules that they have sold seem to have CBD in them, so there are an active ingredient, but I don't know if it certainly hasn't had proof of the medical effects that they are claiming. They claim that they can cure cancer, epilepsy, heart disease, and other serious illnesses. And it also promised to cure you from arthritis in a few weeks. That was one claim that one victim fell for.
And no hyaluronic acid needed then?
Probably not, no. There are alternatives. That's why they call it alt-med, right?
Right.
So the capsules are apparently not illegal to sell as such, if you sell them as supplements without the bogus claims. But they cost more than €2 per capsule. And the recommendation is 1 to 2 capsules per day. So that seems to be a rather expensive thing if it doesn't do anything. Quick calculation, it makes it like 700 to 1,500 euros per year if you put it all together. But it's also the way it was marketed that makes it worse and illegal. It wasn't just the bogus claims as such. They used deep fake videos of well-known people, notably a Swedish TV doctor, so famous person, generated an AI video with him, seemingly promoting this product. Then they added the logo of a Swedish TV network, that's called TV4, one of the big ones, onto that video, and then they spread that video on Facebook. On top of that, they managed to become approved by a very common and normally trustworthy Swedish online bank. So if you wanted to buy this, you got redirected to this very familiar site to process your payment. And that was the real site. It wasn't a fake site. They were somehow got permission to use them as a payment channel. So naturally, even if you're a little bit suspicious at first, many people found it legitimate when they were taken to a payment service that they are used to use. To their shame, this Swedish bank, which is called Klarna, and I'm sure Swedish listeners will recognize that name, they have so far refused to refund any money because they say that they have no responsibility for vetting pharmaceutical products. They are not in the pharmaceutical business. But that's ridiculous. I mean, they must take some responsibility for letting fraudsters use their service. That is ridiculous. So I think they screwed up. There are talk now about legal action against Klarna. Now, of course, I don't know what happened to the Dutch company because that wasn't even named in the news item here that I read. But Klarna absolutely will have some explaining to do and probably will be hit by something, hopefully, for allowing this. But so you have AI, you have fake videos, you have alt-med claims for supplements that do not work, and then you sell it through social media, and then you manage to do it through a normally reputable bank service. That is some sort of record is happening here. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I don't know where I'm at when it comes to their responsibility. I mean, what they are providing is a payment service, right? So whatever you buy as a service, it's just a payment service that you have to go through when you want to pay for the product.
But there are strict laws for how you can do that. I mean, there are anti-money laundering laws.
Sure,
there are fraudulent payments. There are laws that you have to adhere to as a bank. In fact, there are quite strict laws. I am involved professionally in a small company that is not a bank, but we have to follow the same rules, and it's really strict.
Okay. Yeah, it's an interesting and very complex issue, apparently. Okay. And there are very complex issues when it comes to AI in general, right? So much so that sometimes it feels like we're straight out of a sci-fi thriller. But it's actually happening right now in the halls of global power as well. So last week in Delhi, in India, at the AI Impact Summit, French President Emmanuel Macron didn't just walk into the room. He came out swinging as well. In an article recently published by The Guardian, Macron took center stage to defend the European Union's approach to AI regulation. And he did it by taking a direct jab at some very vocal critics across the Atlantic. So what's the fuss? Well, it seems some misinformed friends, as Macron put it, they have been accusing the EU of stifling innovation with too many rules. Specifically, the Trump administration's AI advisor, Sriram Krishnan, had been ranting about how the EU's AI Act is a roadblock for entrepreneurs. And he was not the only one. We know a couple of big names on this field that have accused the EU of the same thing. But Macron didn't have it. So he says Europe isn't just obsessed with regulation, it's obsessed with safety. And he argues that in the long run, safe spaces win. And the stakes couldn't be higher here. Macron is framing this as a battle for the soul of the digital age. He's vowing to use France's G7 presidency to crack down on what he calls digital abuse. We're talking about the explosion of AI-generated sexual images of children, for example, but not only that specific area is harmful, because it can still be harmful when it happens with adults. But it's still a horrifying trend where millions of kids have had their likenesses stolen and manipulated. So Macron is even pushing for a total ban on social media for children under 15 in France. And that's a very controversial topic, and it's being discussed all over Europe in many different countries. Some countries have already implemented those new regulations. But he's calling for a global body, something like the International Atomic Energy Agency, but for AI this time. Think about that. Treating AI with the same gravity as nuclear power. I think that's an important recognition of how important that is.
Yeah,
I agree.
Fortunately, he's not alone with this. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres joined the fray, warning that no child should be a test subject for unregulated tech. Even Indian PM Narendra Modi chimed in, comparing the birth of AI to the discovery of fire. A profound transformation, as he puts it, that needs to be guided by families, not just billionaires. Couldn't agree more. But I think we have to ask, is this bold regulation the only way to protect our society? Or is it a heavy-handed move that will leave Europe trailing behind in the tech race? Macron is betting on the former, insisting that what's illegal in the real world must be illegal online as well. And it's really a high-stakes game. I think it's like digital chess between the US and the EU. Because apparently in the US, the general approach is almost complete deregulation. And that will not lead to anything good in the long run. And rising powers like India, they seem to have like a moderate approach to this. And for once, the conversation isn't just about code and capital. It's about the very real people, especially children, caught in the crossfires. So yeah, we need that approach, and I definitely want to applaud President Macron for stepping up.
By mocking his dialect or his accent. Yeah,
that was good.
All right, but that brings us to the end of the news round, which means we are about to find out who's been really wrong lately.
Ooh. Yes, so of course, again, I can't help myself, but I have to talk about the religious topic.
You really miss Pontus Pokes the Pope, don't you?
Yeah, well, when we started this podcast, I didn't think I would talk so much about religion. I thought I would talk about alt-med and conspiracy theories, but there you go. A controversy has emerged in Belgium regarding circumcision.
Circumcision. Back to genitals.
Yeah, back to genitals. Absolutely. In Belgium, and as I think in most countries, circumcision is legal for religious purposes or reasons. But in Belgium, it has to be carried out under strict conditions by a medical professional, which is very sensible. You can't have your Uncle Ben do it. Now,
or your rabbi.
There's a title for people who do that. 3 Jewish men are suspected of performing circumcisions without medical qualifications. They are so-called mohels. And a mohel, I'm not quite sure about the pronunciation, but it's spelled mohel. According to Wikipedia, that is, quote, a Jewish man trained in the practice of Brit Milah, also something I can't pronounce, which is the covenant of male circumcision, end quote. Women can do that as well, and that in that case they are called a mohelet. So I didn't know this, but we like languages, even if we may not like circumcision, but the languages is always fascinating.
I don't necessarily have a problem with it as long as it's not me going through it. So it's whatever.
Right.
But
yeah, you have to figure out if it's a handicap when you're trying to be a ski jumper. What do you call that?
Oh yeah, you're losing some of the volume. Yeah,
yes.
Exactly. So this is the opposite of your news item.
Yes.
In any case, according to the law, in Belgium, you also have to have a medical license. You can't just be a mohel or a mohelet. You have to have a medical license, which these 3 guys apparently didn't have. So it looks like they have been breaking the law, allegedly, because they are suspected of performing circumcisions without any medical training. Now, this has created a bit of an international incident because Donald Trump's ambassador is now accusing his host country of anti-Semitism because of this. And reportedly, he's now threatening to bar a socialist politician from traveling to the US unless they go lightly on these 3 Jewish guys. So this is very stupid, of course. It's not anti-Semitism or discrimination to make everybody follow the bloody law, right?
Correct.
But you can be a mohel if you want to, as long as that's legal. But then you have to get the proper medical license as well. That doesn't contradict anything. And there is good reason to have proper training. Because in a related news item, this is a little bit older. It was published over a month ago, but still, it was reported in the UK that a baby died from sepsis due to a non-professional performing a circumcision. So this is not harmless. And that's not the first one in the UK. Non-therapeutic circumcision in the UK is considered exempt from regulatory oversight totally. So you don't have to be, it's enough to be a mohel or whatever you call yourself, or a lay practitioner, as they call it in the news item.
That shouldn't even exist. A lay practitioner.
That's a contradiction in terms.
That is self-contradictory term.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah.
There's the swearing.
Yeah, there we go. In another instance in the UK, a man was struck off the medical ledger because he effed up circumcision, which led to the absurd consequence that he was no longer a doctor, he was a layperson, and he was now allowed to do the same thing. He was kicked out of the medical profession for doing a bad job of it, and since he's now a layperson, he can do it. Crazy. So, if there is no medical reason to remove any part of the body of a baby or anybody at all, it should be totally forbidden if you don't have consent. And you can't get consent until the person is an adult. And if an adult wants to have a circumcision, then fine. But you have to wait until you're 18 when you can decide for yourself. That is my position. It's a bit radical. So, cold-hearted atheist as I am, no tolerance for dangerous religious practices. The really wrong award goes out to the very concept of non-medical circumcisions. I don't care if you're a mohel or what, but just stop it, please. You don't need it.
Yeah, and I've got a solution to the problem that your religion requires it to happen. Yeah, don't choose your religion until you're at the age that you can actually make decisions for yourself.
Yeah, I agree.
So, yeah, don't push any child into any kind of religion. Wait until they grow up and they're going to decide for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, that's an issue with recruitment because obviously adults are much less likely to join any church or any special religion because they just make up their own minds. Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much for that, Pontus. I think that is once again a very well-deserved Really Wrong award. And that brings us to the last part of the show, which will be a quote. But before we go, I'd like to thank you, Adrienne, for joining us. I really enjoyed it, and
I had a blast.
We'll find a way to get you back at some point.
I'd love it. I'd love it.
Great.
I like hanging out with you too. It's really good.
Likewise. Okay, so before we go, here's a quote. So, this week's quote comes from Alessandro Giuseppe Antonio Anastasio Volta, who was an Italian chemist and physicist who was a pioneer of electricity. Obviously, his name lives on in power, in volt in physics, and he lived between 1745 and 1827. But the quote is, "You must be ready to give up even the most attractive ideas when experiment shows them to be wrong."
Perfect.
I wish more people did that.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, that is the way to move forward in science. So
this is the way.
Yeah, this is the way. Before we move on to Mandalorian territory, I'm thanking both of you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Many, many thanks to our listeners as well for tuning in. Please keep doing so. And until next week, goodbye.
Hej då.
See ya.
Vislát. This has been your ESP experience. The show is produced and recorded by TheESP.eu. Join us again next time, but until then, please send your feedback and comments to info@TheESP.eu. We would also love to hear your ideas and suggestions regarding topics, and if you have any skeptical news from any European country, we're always eager to hear about them. If you have an upcoming local event or an organization to promote, please don't hesitate to let us know, as we are more than happy to help. All music in the program was written and performed by Keisha J. Gray and George Robb and is used with their permission. Please check out our webpage for show notes and archive material at theesp.eu. Follow us on Blue Sky at theesp.bsky.social. Like us on Facebook or support our work on patreon.com/theesp. And don't forget to spread the word by sharing our content with others.
I don't know how you can believe.
Yeah, and if you need to cut me off, I like to talk too much, so just
I'll do that in post. That's what I do with Albert.
Oh, yeah.
Sounds good.
For example, if there is this war going on and we should help Russia, and we should help Ukraine. And
that's why I keep doing. I keep dancing to the music in between each section. There's no music.
There is in our heads.
Yes.